The Business Enabling Environment Program, BIP, was initiated by the United Kingdom's Department for International Development, DFID, and was implemented through Adam Smith International as Zimbisa from 2014 to 2016. In 2017, BEEP was implemented by IMC Worldwide as IMC BIP. Since 2014, government ministries, departments and agencies, MDA Component of the Business Enabling Environment Program, BEEP, has aimed at improving the way government carries out dialogue and consultation by facilitating the establishment of a recognized and approved consultation process, a sustainable central training program to train MDAs on consultation, and by facilitating the establishment and use of innovative and cost-effective consultation techniques. To kickstart the program, an analysis of the prevailing environment was carried out, and it showed that at the time, there was minimal expertise in consulting the private sector in policy formulation by government. Public consultation events often followed a similar format, whereby experts presented papers on specific issues without a real opportunity for the audience to engage. Government did not follow a well-developed, centralized and unique process when consultation or dialogue could take place. This meant that the level of quality of dialogue varied consistently from MDA to MDA, and even from one department to another.
There was a realization that the government did not consult when it was making its policy. And again, there was no use of evidence when you are making a policy. You know, even in court, you need the evidence, you need the precedents. Where was this case held, and what were the major conclusion, and how the matters was concluded, the judgment, how was it derived. So in Zimbabwe, there was an omission of that. Policy making was a top-down approach. It was as good as donating a policy to stakeholders. And you are aware that Zimbabwe is a record of being not able to implement the policies since 1980. The record is that we are very good in policy making and we are not good in implementing, you see. And the reason is that when you have no consultation, you have no buy-in from stakeholders, you have no consensus, so you can't implement the policy. So we set objectives which were coming from that background, clearly to help government to consult with the stakeholders, and in the same vein, use evidence in policy making, because that's when you can be able to evaluate the policy. Is it a good policy? What are the cost-benefit analysis? So our major objective from a government point of view, as an advice to government, was to have a well-consulted policy making driven by evidence, and which is inclusive. Inclusive in the sense that it includes all the stakeholders who are involved in policy making, and most importantly is there's gender equity and social inclusion, which means women are covered within the policy framework, young people, the disadvantaged, the poor people are taken care of by the aspiration of the policy instruments.
The MDA's component, therefore, developed intervention strategies to bring about systemic change in the way public-private dialogues were being facilitated. The three main interventions were: 1. MDAs use inclusive research to support consultation, policy formulation, and to measure impact of consultation on investors' perception. 2. MDAs use inclusive and effective consultation practices in policy formulation. 3. Inclusive and evidence-based agenda setting.
Our approach was to have government realize the importance of policy making. Obviously, in every decision making, there should be incentives. Government had the frustration that policies are not being implemented, So the incentive for government was to have policy being implemented to loosen the cost or reduce the cost of implementing a policy. So we used an M4P approach, making markets work for the poor. And this approach, you identify, particularly in government, what are the incentives for government to develop their own policies using evidence-based and well consulted. And in this thrust, you will need to develop an approach where it becomes self-sustaining, because don't support it in a way that today is working, tomorrow is gone. When you are not there, it must continue to self-sustain. So what we did, for example, we had a number of interventions. For example, in supporting use of evidence policy consultation, we developed a curriculum which was done again well in an inclusive manner. And in this thrust, the curriculum was used to train government to consult and to use the evidence in policy making.
Due to its influence in the public consultation process, the National Economic Consultative Forum, NECF, has been one of BEEP's most important partners in developing an inclusive consultation process. Right from the start of the program, the NECF demonstrated incredible interest in partnering with BEEP to improve its effectiveness, which was key to the component's success, since the NECF is the forum where policy needs are identified.
NECF is an organization which is a public-private organization set up in 1997 to provide a platform for dialogue between government, business, labor, civil society and academia to discuss economic issues that are of importance to the nation. The issue is that this platform provides the opportunity for various sectors in the economy to meet and come up with suggested solutions for problems within the economy, which can then be forwarded to the policy making process, which is government. In the initial stages of the NECF, it was funded by donors like the UNDP and ACBF, which is the World Bank organization. But that terminated in 2007. And from that point, government was funding the NECF in its totality. But in 2014, the Zimbabwe came on board to assist NECF, and our first project with them was to do a SWOT analysis of the NECF to see where our strengths lay, where our weaknesses are, and then try to correct our weaknesses, which was very helpful for us. And we then did a strategic plan, which is from 2014 to 2019, which we are still using now.
The NECF, with support from the program, began to work to reposition itself as a convener of choice for public-private dialogues. In the process, the NECF developed a public-private dialogue manual in order to standardize the consultation process in the country through wide consultation with stakeholders from both the government and the private sector.
The first issue we took within that strategic plan was to come up with a public-private dialogue manual. This manual provides a template for us, the NECF, as well as others, to organize dialogues and to also consult our stakeholders for whatever we are doing. For us, it's been very good for us because we now have a template. When we are doing a dialogue, we have steps to follow. You don't miss anything out because you have it in a template. And at the launch of this manual, the Chief Secretary is the one who launched the manual, and there were a number of ministry heads of ministries, the secretaries who were at that launch. And the Chief Secretary indicated that they need to use this manual for their consultation processes when they are coming up with new policies or acts of parliament. They need to consult, and this template will be helpful for them. So they are now using also this template. So it's been quite helpful for us as well as the government.
After successfully gaining its full dialogue convening power, the NECF, in an effort to stimulate dialogue around the business environment issues in the country, engaged in the development of the National Competitiveness Report. Using its mandate and convening power, NECF mobilized economists across both the private sector and government to work together on the Competitiveness Report. To date, 3 editions have been launched.
NCR or ZNCR is the Zimbabwe National Competitiveness Report. This report is looking at how Zimbabwe is competitive or not competitive, comparing with other countries within the region and beyond. We started doing this in 2015. That was the first one. At that time we had some help from the United States, but subsequent reports we have done them ourselves with our local economists, which come from government as well as private sector, like Ministry of, like CZI, ZNCC, Bankers Association, so that it's an inclusive process. This helps us to see what we need to do to become competitive, because competitiveness is key for the economy. If we are not competitive, we cannot export, because our products will not be competitive in terms of price and quality with other products from other countries. Even domestically, if our products are not competitive, the imports will outcompete our own products that we produce here. Therefore, our economy will suffer from that. So it's a very important report. We did the second one in 2016, and the third one we did this year. And is just an additional information, in Africa, we are the third to do the competitiveness report after Egypt and Senegal. But outside Africa, almost all those other countries come up with competitiveness reports. So I think this one is a good thing for the country. It will help us to come up with competitiveness issues. For instance, now government is doing ease of doing business. This is part of the competitiveness issues. So, and for your information, our ranking for this year have improved by two places. So we are heading in the right direction now, but we can do much more.
Dr. Nyasha Gaseke is an academic and a researcher, and he has been very key in the development of the National Competitiveness Reports, as well as in developing various working papers for the BEEP and some of its partners.
From the initiation that I've started working with Zimbisa and also MCB about maybe 3 years ago, we've been doing the National Competitiveness Report. In the first year, it was the General National Competitiveness Report, which covers in terms of where the country is doing very well in terms of competitiveness. And then in our second year report, which was the 2016 report, we have to include two sectors, which are manufacturing and the financial sector, because these have got a bearing in terms of what is happening into the economy. In this current 2017 National Competitiveness Report, we've included the chapter of agriculture, just to look in terms of the success that has been achieved by the agricultural sector in the current competitiveness report. And also in terms of this, we have highlighted a lot of what issues that needs to be corrected or that needs to be done by the government and also even the stakeholders to improve the way how we are doing things in the country. Other than these issues, I've done this to do with cost drivers, which I've presented in Bulawayo in a conference which was also funded by the IMC BIP. In terms of that area, we've highlighted what are the issues to do with what the cost drivers that are affecting business in terms of Zimbabwe, and the whole conference and also the attendants have agreed that if we address this cost, we will be able to achieve issues to do with what competitiveness in the country. Then there was also the issue to do with the taxation of small and medium enterprises in Zimbabwe, where we now look in terms of what are the forms, what are the models that can be used to tax the SMEs in Zimbabwe. And lastly, the taxation of what of the manufacturing sector and what in Zimbabwe. All these are the work that have been funded by MC BIP and also Zimbisa in the background. There are a lot of improvements that have been done by government, by the Minister of Industry and Commerce in terms of maybe improving some of the things in terms of how we do business in the country. This to do with regularization of the imports, which were actually affecting. This to do with the competitiveness of the country, and also is to do with some reforms that have happened in terms of the Labour Act. They were all spearheaded, and they were also come as a result of some recommendations that have been made in terms of our first National Competitiveness Report. And also right now, some of the reforms that are being done in terms of taxing small and medium enterprises, all these are being done as a result of the work that has been funded, or the research that has been funded by IMCB. I've done now quite extensive material in terms of the work for the NCR. Over the years, I'm the one who has been overseeing the final documentation of the NCR, and I've also been writing chapters. For example, the chapter of cost driver. It is my own initiative that we have to include that chapter in the report each and every year, and that chapter is always my baby from the start of the program up to now. I've done a lot of papers, one in terms of what is to do with the taxation of SMEs in Zimbabwe. Another paper that I've done is this to do with costing in terms of the Zimbabwean manufacturing industry sector. And also I've also done another paper which is costing and taxation framework models, which I've presented as a form of pre-budget seminar workshop, which was actually hosted by the Chronicle Zimbabwe in Bulawayo. All these are some of the papers that have done under the guidance and also funding by IMCB. We've contributed much in terms of each to do with business management organization. For example, in terms of one of our recommendations that I think most of the taxation of SMEs should be done by business management organization, because those are the organizations which knows their players, their participants, and those who want to join one organization. So it will be helpful for us even if to continue with this work, because we have seen the benefits of this work in terms of how they can also be done. We've also made some recommendations even to the nation at large, where we now say that as a nation, for example, right now, what can we do in terms of reducing the cost of production in terms of agriculture? One of the components is to do with the fertilizer. What can be done in terms of reducing the cost of fertilizer in the country, so that we realize that our cost of production, our pricing in terms of maize, tobacco and so forth, there is at reasonable level as compared to what they are at the moment. So all these are a lot of contribution that has been done in terms of the area and also in terms of the funding that has been provided by IMCB. There are a lot. We have to make sure that we have to encourage even the local business to come in to make the program sustainable. Why? Because if the players in terms of the industry, the government, they do not come in, I think some of these things can also even what for even the national competitiveness of report that we are boasting about can also not be what continue being produced if we don't have other funding that is coming from the private sector. So to make the product what sustainable, I think we have to have all other players coming in other than only have what funding from IMC, what BIP.
In 2016, the NECF began work on the National Economic Symposium as a national platform to bring together all stakeholders to dialogue over policy reforms ahead of the announcement of the national budget. The event was a major success, and it has since become an annual event, with the 2017 edition being held in November.
The National Economic Symposium is a conference which we came up with last year. It was the first one to discuss issues that we need to deal with to get our economy moving again. The symposium is open to all people, all participants who can input into issues that need to be dealt with. And we come up with recommendations at the end of each symposium, which we feed into the Ministry of Finance for the budget for the following year. So this year's recommendations have already been forwarded to the Ministry of Finance since they are in the process of coming up with the budget for 2018. So it is a forum where people can come and feed in to the budget. Well, the one thing that I need to say is that the coming in of Zimbabwe and IMC BIP has helped us immensely because resources to do our work was not what we hoped it would be. I mean, kudos to the government for continuing to support us. But as the work intensifies, we probably need access to more resources. And the coming in of Zimbabwe and BIP helped us a lot, and we do appreciate that. Unfortunately, I think their program might be coming to an end this year. Should they rethink or come back, we are ready to continue to work with them. And as I say, we really appreciate their support.
As this phase of the program comes to an end, key achievements have been recorded and are expected to lay the foundation for continued gains and a systemic change in the market.
I think what is very important is that first and foremost, you continue what you have seen that it works, isn't it? So what I have noted that government is very happy with the approach of inclusive approach to policy making, using consultation, using evidence. A lot of achievement have been recorded. Government has seen that it works to work as a team and making policy, because once you have consensus, you go together. The whole issue is on having consensus. And because we say it's a market system approach, or a market making markets work for the poor, M4P approach, it works on incentives. So the incentives for government are very clear, is to have easiness in implementing a policy, to reduce the cost of implementing a policy, because cost comes when people are not implementing it. So you want to achieve any goals. It's like growing maize, and it's not germinating, and you're not harvesting anything. You are wasting resources, and it becomes a cost. So in my view, the program which we have put in place have recorded tremendous results. We have seen a lot of reforms. We have seen a lot of legislations being changed. For example, we have seen a repealing of the National Competitiveness Commission into a National Incomes and Pricing Commission, and being replaced by a National Competitiveness Commission. That is an institution which has been set up. So it was born out of the work which I've done. So certainly when there's an institution which has been set up, it's guaranteed that the work is going to continue, because the current job which we've been doing of helping government to develop a national competitiveness report, for example, was not backed by any institutional setup. It was in a hybrid arrangement where economic ministries are coming together to work on it, and other private sector players. Now we have an institution whose mandate, one of its functions within its principles or the Act, say it must produce annually national competitiveness report. So it will continue to do it without us. But it was our seed which we gave to this process through our support. And again, the National Competence Commission, we have a mandate of spearheading reforms and working groups through an evidence-based approach and a consultation approach. So you see already that it will continue to power that work we have been doing. But of course, it doesn't substitute our requirement. We still remain very important to guide it, particularly working with international consultants, experts who have been working on this work, and I think it will add value. But that, for me, is a guarantee that once we have an institution which is in place to take this work forward, it will continue to work. Plus, it's working on incentives. And again, the investment perception survey, it's an annual event. These are reports which have been already, it's twice, it happens after 2 years. So in my view, the adoption of government is enough for you to have a guarantee that they're going to work on it. Because even the rapid results approach was an offshoot of the recommendation for need for setting up of working groups. It was a recommendation from our work, and it's already going. We're funding it. It's funded by private sector and government. So it tells you sustainability. And what also we've seen is that in recent months, particularly this year, we have seen a lot of commitment from private sector and government putting resources to support programs. And in a way, our contribution has become very small, demonstrating value for money and buy-in and endorsement by players that they want this work to happen. And as long as you don't have people participating on it, putting their money, there's no guarantee that they'll continue. So where I'm sitting, I'm very sure that the program will continue into perpetuity.
It is therefore envisaged that with the work that has been done by various BEAP partners and the networks developed with various stakeholders through the BEAP's cross-component work, the MDAs will continue making use of research in policy making use of effective consultation practices, as well as setting an evidence-based agenda.